It's the most wonderful time of the year, with the kids jingle belling and everyone telling you be of good cheer. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. Hello, everyone. I'm Cynthia Trejo, and I'm with Her Element and Real Talk, a digital talk show for women where we have real conversations with real women about life's challenges, triumphs, and experiences. And today we have Cristal Acosta with Clarity Counseling, Consultation, and Wellness. Well, welcome, Cristal, and thanks for joining us today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, Cynthia. Again, my name's Cristal Acosta. I'm a licensed professional counselor supervisor in the state of Texas. I'm also a nationally board approved counselor, and I'm also a certified clinical trauma professional. I've been practicing in the El Paso community for about 10 years, más o menos, and I own my own private practice. I've been in the nonprofit sector for many years before that, but right now my main focus is just my private practice and taking care of my son and doing trainings and teaching a little bit at UTEP too. So that's kind of what's going on right now.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. What do you teach at UTEP?
I teach a master's course in counseling called Theories of Counseling.
Okay. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us today, Cristal. Our today's conversation is about the most wonderful time of the year, and when the holidays are not the best times of the year for many. The holidays can be a joy-filled season, but for others, it can be a stressful and challenging season. So I have a study here, statistics from NAMI. A study showed that 64% of people with mental illness reported holidays make their conditions worse. And for many, the holiday season is not so merry and bright. And so that's what we're having a conversation around today with Cristal, and how to help yourself or help others who may be experiencing those holiday blues. Cristal, I'm sure within your practice and what you're doing, you may already be having those conversations with some of your clients, and how the holidays can be stressful, or for others maybe maybe they've had a loss of a loved one, or they're feeling lonely, and these times in the holidays can be stressful. And so I wanted to, talk to you and see what tips or what resources or what you can help give information to the listeners and the viewers today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what you said is true. It is, the most wonderful time of the year for a lot of people. There's a lot of hustle and bustle and buying gifts, and it's really pretty when you go and drive around and look at all the lights, and everything is really nice and cute and decorated. And sometimes though, I think that, like you said in the study that you found with NAMI, people's conditions can get worse. And so that's with people who have already standing mental illness, right? And people who have already been diagnosed with a mental illness. So we all have maybe not been diagnosed with a mental illness, but we certainly all can feel the stress of definitely COVID-19. We all have just been through the year of 2020 and 2021. And what we've all been through is something that we call a collective and global trauma. And so pile that on top of regular holiday stress, holiday blues, possibly even grieving the loss of a family member or a loved one. Those things definitely can get worse. So I think that it's going to be important to prioritize self-care, prioritize, setting boundaries for yourself. And also, even though there's a pandemic going around, prioritizing getting yourself community care, getting yourself around your support system and the people that you can rely on and that you can trust. But yeah, I think that it's a mixed bag.
Yes.
And there can be mixed emotions around the holidays for sure.
Yeah. And you just like you mentioned, we're still in the midst of this pandemic, and last year looks very different than this year because we are, having gatherings. We are among our loved ones much more than we were able to do in 2020. But there's still that stress is still there. We were having a conversation earlier of how that stress is still there, that stressor of keeping our distance, and with the numbers going up with COVID and things like that. And then you add to that, possibly those that had lost a loved one during this time, that also can be very, very difficult. And so what does one do? How can we even reach out to those that maybe we feel are going through some things?
Yeah, I think that it's important to still use the tools we have. So, you and I are meeting over Zoom. I understand that it's not the same as being able to shake your hand or hug you in person and have this conversation in person. And our brains might not receive it the exact same way, but being able to see you over camera, over a screen, still offers some benefits to the brain. Being able to hear somebody's voice over the phone, being able to wave to your neighbor across the street, letting your brain know that there are still people out there. What happens is our brains do something called pruning. It's like a plant, right? Like parts of it die off if we don't use it. You use it or you lose it. And so our brains can stop kind of growing that part of our socializing practices. So if we kind of stop talking to other people, or don't wave hi to other people, or practice those social skills, then we kind of start to lose them. And I personally experienced that the other day. I think I was telling you a little bit earlier that I went to the mall to take pictures with Santa with my 2-year-old, which is always fun if you've ever done that with a 2-year-old. I'm being totally sarcastic. But I came out in the picture all sweaty and it was like a mess. But anyways, yeah, everybody was kind of like in the mall. We were like wearing masks, and then, when we would pass by each other, it was kind of like, how do we move out of the way? Do we move to the right? Do we move to the left? Are we too close to each other? Are we too far away? Do we say hi to each other? Do we shake each other's hands? Do we sit next to Santa? Do we stand away from Santa? What do we do? So I think we're all still trying to figure out socializing in general. And I think that that's probably due to being cooped up for almost 2 years, right? Just being in the house. And so that's what happens to the brain. It's just, it wasn't practicing, those skills. So I think one of the main things is within your capacity, using the tools you have and being as safe as possible, trying to reach out and remind your brain and remind each other that, there are still pleasant interactions to be had out there.
Yeah. I think, when everything happened at the beginning of COVID, and people started going towards online and, Zooming, that was the way to stay connected. But then there was Zoom fatigue, where you spend too much time in front of the computer. We're trying to connect with one another, but then you're sitting here, and it's really, it's a difficult thing to do. And also to be sitting in front of the laptop or the computer for extended period of time, that's also not good. Bringing that balance is I think, balance in every sense of what we're doing here, trying to stay normal, right? Trying to stay what we call normal, of what we knew prior to this that we're living in now. those are the challenges that many are facing. All of us are facing, right? How do we continue to try to stay normal in these times? And then how can we, when we're, celebrating the holidays, and we may not feel like we're, enjoying the holidays, it's okay to not be there, right? I would say it's okay if you're not fully into this holiday season, you should be okay with that, because you have to deal with what you're going through, right?
Absolutely. I think what you said, I think about going back to normal, right?
Mhm.
I think just because something was normal doesn't mean that it was healthy,
Mhm.
right? So before COVID, the way we were living at this really fast pace with all this stimuli coming into our lives, going here and there and being connected on the phone, on the tablet, on the computer, being accessible, saying yes to all these people and favors and deadlines, and being in a rush all the time and not just during the holiday season, that was probably normal but not healthy. And then so COVID put this like complete stop to that. And I think that put life into perspective for a lot of people.
Yes, right.
And I, myself included, I mean, I had to physically shut down my location, right, for counseling. And so I went completely virtual, is one example of that. And that allowed me to have better work-life balance, healthier work-life balance. And I pivoted my business structure, which is, better and it's healthier, but I think also to the point of creating that balance, like you're saying, um, how do we keep this up and not get Zoom fatigue and not and how do we stay connected and also um I guess stay physically healthy, mentally healthy, financially healthy? How do we do all these things, but kind of in this new world? And
Mhm.
I think that that's a challenge that a lot of us are trying to still navigate, and it's really hard to figure out. I think we're in new territory, but
Mhm.
we're also in old territory. And what I mean by that is, I had made this comment earlier before we started recording that humans have been around for like thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But to our knowledge, we've only had computers and cars and this kind of technology for like about 100 years, right? So we've lived without all this and survived without all this for millennia. So it's like, how did we do it, right? We had to have survived. We were okay. We didn't die off. We made it.
Yeah.
Um, So I think that we're kind of returning to this realization and this lifestyle that we're human, we can only take so much. It's probably not healthy the way we were living before. But we need to slow down.
Yeah. I was thinking about this morning. It's almost like there was a reset button that was pressed. Okay, reset. Now figure it out how we're going to try something different. And it is difficult. I can tell you for myself, it's been difficult to not be. I'm a very people oriented person. I enjoy being around people, and to not do that anymore. I got my shots and everything, and I was able to go back out there, but still very, very reserved, keeping my distance and stuff. And it's been hard. It's been hard to still try to go out there and not be who I'm wired, I'm wired to be. And that's been difficult. But not sticking with the subject of the holidays. Now we're having the holidays, and this year is going to be different than it was next year, because we can have more gatherings possibly, right? Who knows, because of the way things are going, but we're able to have those gatherings. But still there's that reservation of, okay, that I'm speaking for myself. I can't say that everyone's in the same boat, but that's been my challenge. That's been my challenge is keeping my distance and still being close. That's been tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, keeping distance but staying close. That's hard to do. And I think that yeah, back to your original question, I think that setting boundaries is going to be really important, right? So if you have to say no for your own sanity, for your own mental health, I mean, we literally did just go through a global trauma, right? Unless you literally were living under a rock, then you were not affected by COVID-19, right? I mean, people have to understand that context of we're still in the middle of a pandemic. This is still not over. Our numbers are going back up right now. Um, I am not comfortable with going out right now. I am not comfortable with going out um into a family gathering. I can drop by gifts at the front door. We can do a Zoom get together and we can open gifts at the same time or play a game over Zoom or something like that, but I will not be joining the family. It doesn't mean that I don't care, that I'm not connected. It just means that I don't feel physically safe at this moment. So maybe saying things like that would be helpful just so that you can set your boundaries so your anxiety doesn't go up and you also keep yourself physically safe. Um, because I think in our culture, specifically with Mexican culture being so close to each other and like this collectivism where we want to just saludar a todos, and if we don't, it's like, why is she being rude? Like,
Yeah.
why didn't she hug me? Why didn't she say bye? Or, it's like, why didn't they come over? Why aren't they eating my food? It's like, that doesn't equal I don't love you, or
Right.
that doesn't equal I don't like you. It just means right now we're in the middle of a pandemic and we have to kind of be more gentle with each other, right? And give each other that permission and grace, uh, considering the context, right? We lost a lot of people in our community.
Yeah.
Thousands of people died in our community due to COVID. And so we have to kind of remember that, you know? And if people are still afraid, there's a good reason for that, right? There's trauma symptoms that can come from these global traumatic events. Um, and so that's legitimate. Those are legitimate concerns. We're not making them up in our brains, or we're not just being like, oh, she's, you know, exagerando, like she's not just exaggerating. It's just these are real concerns,
Right.
that can come from trauma symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very much so. And so, sticking back to what are some possible things that what one can do when they are going through this time of sadness or anxiety or stress during the holidays? What can one do to help themselves with that?
Yeah, the way that I explain this to my clients is to engage in self-care. And self-care doesn't necessarily mean, oh, a spa day and a pedicure and all of that, because some of that can get expensive. But self-care, in simple terms, is really just maintaining the machine, right? So, um, brushing your teeth, making sure you shower, making sure you drink water, treating yourself like a plant.
Mhm.
And that's a really nice little metaphor or analogy or whatever the correct term for that is. Um, to remember that is, flowers and plants need water. They need good nutrition in their soil. So like watching what you eat, not too much junk food or things with a lot of chemicals in it and stuff like that. So I'm not saying go on a diet and go exercise or anything like that. I'm just saying nutritious food, maybe a vegetable a day, like have your one vegetable, have your one fruit, or take your vitamins or whatever it is, or if you need medication, right? Like that's part of your nutrition. Um, your water, I already said that, the nutrition, the socializing, it doesn't mean that you go and have to go to a party or anything like that. But like I said, saying hi to your neighbor 50 feet away or going on a walk at the park and just kind of passing by those other people, that just registers for your brain that there are other people out there and that can be healthy for your brain, just for brain health in general. And getting that fresh air that can help with oxygen, that can help with all of those feel good hormones. The movement that you're getting while you're walking is also really good for you. And I didn't say exercise, I said movement, right? So even if you get up, do gentle stretches while you're watching those Hallmark movies or those Netflix Christmas movies, if you push pause every once in a while, or you know how if you watch Netflix for a really long time, it'll tell you, "Are you still watching?"
Ah.
And you have to push yes. So maybe when that notification comes out, you can get up, go to the restroom, go drink water, do some stretches, and then come back and push play and then sit back down. Or you can get on like some sort of bike, or if you have like exercise equipment at home while you're watching the movie, that would be good too. You're knocking two things out at the same time. Um, and then also getting sunlight. So even though we live in the Sun City, there's a high prevalence of a vitamin D deficiency in our community. Um, so making sure that if it's to a certain level, of course, going to your doctor and making sure that's taken care of medically, but you know, getting enough sunlight, all of that. So treating yourself like a plant is a good way to look at it. And of course, setting boundaries like we had mentioned earlier.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you, Crystal. I do appreciate your time. I think this is something that is needed to know, just to know that also you're not going through this alone. There's others that are there that can be there for you. You mentioned sharing some resources, so we can share that as well. You had mentioned there's a local crisis hotline number that an individual could call. There's even a virtual, what was it that you called it, a virtual soothing room or something like that?
Yeah, virtual relaxation room. So if you go onto the Emergence Health Network website, you will find a virtual relaxation room. So I believe the website is emergencehealthnetwork.org, which is our local mental health authority. Um, they have a COVID-19 crisis counseling program as well, where you can get free counseling if it's related to COVID-19 concerns. So the phone number there is 915-779-1800. So you just call that number and you can talk to a qualified counselor. And I'm not sure if there's like a limited amount of sessions or not or anything, but you call them, you can talk to them about anything that's related to COVID. And then, of course, if you are thinking of ending your life or you are in a crisis, you're thinking about suicide, you can call the National Suicide Hotline number, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text a suicide hotline number. You can text the word home, HOME, to the phone number 741-741. And that way, if you don't want to talk to a person, you can text a person, and that's a suicide hotline number as well. So that's a resource for people who are struggling as well. And just real quick, contrary to popular belief, if you ask somebody if they're suicidal, that does not plant the idea in their head and make it worse. It actually is good for you to ask directly if somebody wants to kill themselves or end their life. So that's a way for you to intervene with someone. If you suspect that they're suicidal, it's better for you to ask them directly.
Okay, great. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that information. It's great to know. So yes, thank you again, you all for joining us with this December holiday real talk. And these numbers that were shared will be shared again at the end of the video, so that if you'd like to jot them down. And again, as I mentioned, if you're experiencing if you're needing help, please reach out to give a call or text these numbers, because you're not alone. Right? And I really want to emphasize that you're not alone. There's many people that are here to help you. So thank you again for joining us today with Real Talk, a digital talk show for women. And we look forward to seeing you all again next month. Thank you.